He begged me to help him sleep, but I just watched his body decay instead. My best friend died because he forgot how to sleep. That's the simplest way to put it. Kian wasn't just a friend, he was the kind of person you orbit, a human son. He had this laugh that could cut through any bullshit, and he'd pull you into whatever stupid scheme he'd cooked up, and you'd go along with it because being with Kian was better than being anywhere else. He made life louder. And then, one night, a switch in his brain just broke. The off switch in his brain just broke. He told me about it the next day at school, laughing. Said he'd pulled an all-nighter, but not on purpose. He'd spent 8 hours playing some new shooter game, trying to burn himself out. My body's tired, man, he said, punching my arm, but my brain's running a marathon. He still had that spark in his eyes. We didn't see the problem. We were 14. Staying up all night was a badge of honor. We tried to cover for him in biology so he could nap on his desk. He'd put his head down, and we'd see his shoulders relax. For a second. Then his whole body would jerk, a violent electric twitch, and his head would snap back up. He'd just stare at the desk, confused. He tried to laugh it off. Said the chair was too damn hard. The second night was worse. He didn't even turn on his PC. He told me later he just lay in the dark at 7 p.m., begging his body to shut down, but it wouldn't. He said the silence was the worst part. It wasn't silent at all. It was full of noise. The hum of the refrigerator became a roar. The creak of the floorboards in the hall sounded like a snapping bone. He could hear the blood pumping in his own ears, a frantic, desperate drumbeat. He started hearing other things, too. Whispers, he said, lost in the static of the house. He showed up to school the next day, and the sun was gone. His skin was pale, waxy. His eyes were bruised, looking holes in his face. He walked like his joints were full of sand. That booming laugh was gone, replaced by a dry rasp. He wasn't Kian anymore. He was a bad photograph of Kian. He told me he heard someone call his name the night before, clear as day. He'd gotten up, checked the house, his parents were asleep, the doors were locked. "I'm not going crazy," he kept saying, but his eyes were darting everywhere, like he was afraid of what was hiding in the corners of the classroom. His brain was starting to fray. He'd forget what he was saying mid-sentence. He'd stare at his locker, unable to remember the combination. It was like watching a battery drain in real time. Something was siphoning the life out of him, bit by bit. That night, my phone lit up. A text from him. "Can you come over? I think I'm in trouble." My mom understood. She saw the look on my face. Kian's house was only a few blocks away. His parents let me in, looking exhausted themselves. They thought it was the video games. Too much screen time, his dad mumbled, like that could explain the horror carving itself onto their son's face. Kian's room was a cave, blackout curtains drawn tight. The air was thick and stale, with a sour, musty smell I couldn't place, like damp laundry left in a heap for too long. He was a lump under his covers. "Hey, Rafi," he whispered as I came closer. His voice was a thread. "My name isn't Rafi. It's me, man," I said gently. He blinked. "Oh, sorry. My head's all staticky." He'd made a list. Things to try. Warm milk. A hot shower. Some meditation app on his phone. We went through them one by one. Nothing. With each failure, a new layer of frantic energy coated him. He was a wire pulled too tight. He finally collapsed back into bed. "Just don't leave the room," he begged. "Please." I pulled his desk chair over and sat. The silence returned, heavy and suffocating. The sour smell seemed to be getting stronger. It was coming from him, from his breath, his pores. After what felt like an eternity, his breathing deepened. His jaw went slack. I felt this wave of relief wash over me. It's over. He's sleeping. Then it happened. His back arched off the mattress, a rigid, impossible curve. His limbs went stiff, his fingers clawed at the air. A sound tore from his throat, a wet, choked gurgle. It wasn't a snore or a gasp. It was the sound of something being violently ripped out of him. His eyes flew open. They weren't looking at me. They were looking past me, into the darkest corner of the room. He stared for a solid 10 seconds, his body locked in that unnatural bow. Then he collapsed back onto the mattress, limp. He took a huge, shuddering breath. Another. He was panting like he'd just been held underwater. He started to cry, silently. Tears just streamed down his face, soaking into his pillow. He wouldn't look at me. "What was that?" I whispered. I was fucking terrified. He just shook his head, his whole body trembling. A few minutes later, he started to drift again. And again, the seizure. The arched back. The gurgle. The wide, terrified eyes staring at the empty corner. It happened 3 more times. Each one was more violent than the last. He was fighting to sleep, and something inside him, or something in that room, was fighting back harder. I don't know when I passed out. One minute I was watching him, my own eyes burning with exhaustion, and the next, I was waking up to gray morning light filtering through the curtains. It was the worst thing I could have done. I fell asleep. He couldn't. I woke up because the room was silent. Kian was sitting on the floor, his back against the bed, just staring at me. His expression wasn't angry or sad. It was something else. A kind of hollowed-out envy. "Who's there?" he suddenly croaked, his gaze snapping to the doorway. I looked. Nothing. I got up and put a hand on his shoulder. It was ice cold, clammy through his t-shirt. He flinched like I'd burned him. It was the 3rd day. He was a ghost. He didn't go to school. He didn't leave his room. His parents told me he stopped eating. He'd claw at his face, at his eyelids, leaving bloody scratches down his cheeks. He was trying to dig the wakefulness out. One night, during one of the waking spasms, he thrashed so hard his forearm slammed against the metal bed frame. There was a sharp crack. He didn't even scream. He just lay there with a broken arm, breathing in ragged gasps, his mind completely shattered. He started screaming that his parents weren't his parents. "They're wearing their faces," he shrieked, cowering in a corner. "They're wrong." He babbled nonsense, words that weren't words, wet, guttural clicks and pops. It sounded like he was trying to speak a language that was choking him. A few of us went to see him. His parents looked like they'd aged 20 years. They let us go up. The smell hit us on the stairs. It was rot, the sweet, cloying smell of decay. His room was a wreck. He was lying on the bare mattress, motionless, staring at the ceiling. He was skeletal. His broken arm, in a crude splint his dad had made, was turning a mottled purple. He didn't speak, he didn't move, he just breathed. That was all he did. Breathe and exist. We couldn't stay. The air was too heavy, too full of death. He ended up in the hospital. They ran every test imaginable. Brain scans, blood work, sleep studies where he just lay there, wired up, wide awake for 48 straight hours. They called it a novel, aggressive form of fatal familial insomnia, but it wasn't genetic. It was just a thing that was happening to him. They tried to knock him out with every drug they had. The sedatives would almost work, but right as he'd go under, the seizures would start, more violent than ever. They had to strap him down, but he thrashed so hard he started dislocating his own joints. They were terrified his heart would just explode. There was nothing they could do. They sent him home. A death sentence. His mom called me, sobbing. They had to lock his door. He was destroying what was left of his room, hurting himself, screaming things that made no sense all night long. I had to see him one more time. I walked over. The house was dead quiet. Keon's mom and dad were sitting on the couch in the living room, staring at a blank television. They were gray, hollow. They saw me, but they didn't say anything. They didn't stop me when I went upstairs. The smell was a physical wall of filth. His door was ajar. He wasn't in the bed. He was in the corner. The same corner he'd stared at during his fits. He was sitting on the floor, facing it, his back to me. His body was a collection of sticks, draped in waxy skin. His head was tilted up, like he was looking at something. I took a step into the room, and a floorboard creaked. He didn't move. "Kian?" I whispered. Nothing. I walked around him, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had to see his face. I had to know. He was dead. His skin was tight over his skull. His broken bones had pierced the skin in places. And his eyes were wide open. They weren't cloudy or dull. They were dry, leathery, like two old marbles. Staring intently into the empty corner of the room, he looked like he had finally seen what had been watching him all along. At least he's resting now. That's what people say. But I was in that room, and whatever took him, I don't think it ever let him sleep, not even in the end.